Welcome to another episode of The Resilient Philosopher. This is the Leon Dantes. And as you all know by now, President Maduro, or the leader of the Socialist Party in Venezuela, has been captured and brought to New York to be arraigned. This episode is not about politics. It's not about ideology. It's it's about history and what I've experienced in my life. You see, when Fidel Castro died, I always had the notion, since my parents are Cuban, that Cuba was going to change. I honestly thought that by Fidel dying, that the Castro regime that had so much power and oppressed the people so much will change. I truly did. And instead, in a way, it grew stronger. It grew stronger because now they made it a revolution for the patriarch of the country. Let's continue forward the dream of Castro. And nothing has changed. As a matter of fact, Cuba is poorer now than before. And one key thing that I've noticed with Cuba is that Cuba has always been dependent. And maybe I shouldn't be so general when I say that, but let's put it this way. Once Cuba was colonized by Spain, it lost everything. It lost all sorts of autonomy. It became part of an empire that didn't care about anything. It extracted all resources that it could from the people. It came to the Americas, took the gold, took the silver, and Cuba, it took the sugarcane, tobacco, it brought slaves, killed off almost all the indigenous people, if not all. I think only a small remnants of, or a small tribe of mestizos and Siboney, I believe, tribe exists in Cuba, last time I heard. My parents, I don't think ever met any, not that they have told me, but the interesting part is, though, that in order to become free, it depended on the United States. And then once it won the independence from Spain, it became dependent of United States. Once it paid off United States stayed with interest in the island. There were companies owned by United States, which is understandable. They left the base, which is understandable. Again, this is not a criticism to any political or country or anything. But what is interesting is that soon after they are truly independent, in a sense, General Machado, became a dictator. Once he fell and Batista was president, he became a dictator. Once Batista was taken out, Fidel became a dictator. And it has been under a socialist, how they call it, a socialist with a path towards communism. They don't even know where they are. The point is that they decided to be an oppressive regime against the people. You have or had no freedom of speech, no freedom to protest. As a matter of fact, I personally met Cubans that when they did go to protest, the government would bring out their secret police and dressed as civilians and beat up everybody, or at least the ones that they were able to catch up to. And then the news would say, look how much the citizens of Cuba love Fidel Castro, that they went out to the streets and silenced the protesters, the enemies of the state. Now, in Cuba, there is no two sides of one party. It's just one party. And the one best thing that party did for themselves was to create a system where nobody could trust anybody. I spoke about this in a previous podcast, that they rewarded snitching. And in a way that people thought that by contributing to the government, their life became better, which is not true. It's not true at all. And after since 1959, almost 70 years now, things have not gotten any better. Things have not changed. People have become dependent on a broken system. So dependent on a broken system that same system can be broken. And I've met Cubans that come here to visit that have told me that their biggest fear is not the collapse of the Cuban government, but who will take the command if their government was to fall. A main reason for this is because you got Cubans in the United States that by now are descendants of landowners that Fidel Castro took over their land. And a lot of them still believe that if Cuba was to change, they could go back and reclaim their land. We're talking about 1959 to 2026. That land that's so-called they owned back then is no longer theirs by any means. Once you leave the island, you have left behind everything. You have no rights to anything. I mean, just imagine if you leave your property in almost any civilized country, after 7 years, it becomes public owned, meaning another person can buy it. You basically disappeared. That's the way they're going to look at it. You disappeared. You were not here. Decades have passed by. You no longer own the land. It don't matter what papers you have. Those papers were signed with a different administration, a different government, in a different time. It is no longer valid. But it is that fear that those Cubans will return and try to reclaim what once was theirs that a lot of people still support the system, a broken system that doesn't work. And this brings us directly to Maduro. The socialist system in Venezuela is not new. It's been around now for decades. You're going to have a portion of the population that hates it and a greater portion that, believe it or not, will like it. They enjoy the socialist system because socialism under a dictatorship promotes laziness. And again, this is not political. Let me reinstate that. I'm simply saying when a president promises to give out everything the people need in order for them to live a good life without having to do anything but love the system, a lot of those people that didn't want to do anything are going to love the system. Now, the way that that is rooted is when the number of poor civilians or poor citizens within a country surpasses the amount of working class or the wealthy class in that same country. When that poverty reaches a certain level, then the idea of the government should give us more becomes loud. And when it gets so loud, there's always manipulators listening that are eager for power. And the only system tied to helping the poor and giving everything to the people and equality for all, it is socialism and communism. Now, in the website, I am going to start writing a series on systems when it comes to style of governments. And one of the key issues that I want to touch is how when you remove free market from any country, you eliminate the innovation, the competition, the friction that a market needs in order to grow. You see, a government can print as much money as it wants to. It does not mean that the value of the money is true. Resources take a lot of work to be made. You just simply, or I should say most countries nowadays do not have the capability of making the plastic, making the mold, making the toys, and then selling the toys. Well, if you have the capability of doing all that, but your money is worth nothing, then who are you going to sell it to? And if you need to buy, I don't know, medicine, rice, or any other commodity from the rest of the world, and your money is no longer value anything, how are you going to do it? Eventually, the poor will get even poorer. The government runs out of money, and at the end of the day, socialism fails, communism fails. But it's not because of the system, but because the leaders within the system. What happened to Maduro had to happen. Only history will tell us if it was the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. But what I can tell you right now is if it is anything like it happened when Fidel Castro died, the seed of communism or socialism is within its citizens. Even if the mirage that the system has changed, that they're no longer socialist, once United States pulls out, in slow time, it will come back to fruition. Socialism will never be truly gone, or the system that socialism creates will never truly be gone as long as people are not willing to change it. Any real change within a country has to come from its citizens. Think about it. Are the people willing to do the work? Are the people willing to rebuild their country if given the materials to do so? And where are those materials going to come from? Who's going to pay for those materials? In a country where their money isn't worth anything. I'm not being a pessimist, by no means. I want the best for everyone around the world. But I also think that it's important for us to live in reality, to know that a change of leadership does not change the system. And the system is put on by a whole administration, a whole cabinet of individuals that have a narrative, that have a hidden agenda, that are making money out of it. When you follow the money, the old saying, follow the money, you will notice that there were already outside influences in Venezuela. There is already outside influences in Cuba. The United States going in there and doing what they did, it's not any lesser or greater evil than what it was already happening in the country. The problem is when a leader is solidified and completely concentrated power is in their hand, then the corruption is completely centralized and it becomes law. The same people that Fidel Castro put out in his administration, in his cabinet, were stealing from him. The same leaders that went down the food chain, went down the system, were stealing from the system. So the concentration of resources stayed within the top. It never came down to the bottom, to the people. The person that he put in charge of the grocery store, or what they call bodegas in Cuba, was stealing the resources and selling them in the black market for more money. And that can only change when people are willing to change. You can change the head of the government, but if the people are not willing to change the way that they were doing things, things will continue to be the same way. It just becomes a mirage. It just becomes an illusion that things have changed, but they have not. So my question to you is, how would you feel if your country was always run by outside influences and was dependent on totalitarian regimes in order to survive? I am pretty sure that most of us would not be happy with that. And that is why a lot of the people in Venezuela will be happy, will be rejoiceful, will be thanking Trump, will be thanking Americans. Americans will be loved. But what happens when they've noticed that they have changed one dependency for another? What will happen when the United States moves out of Venezuela and the people have not changed? That same regime will come back, and it will come back as a cancer, stronger than before, and with a payback attitude, where they will incarcerate all the people that they consider enemies of the state. Don't take it from me. I am simply an observer that has paid attention to history, that tries to see things differently. Because right now, everybody's talking about the political side of it. So what? No system is perfect. There's no perfect government. There is no perfect candidate. We all make mistakes. We are all capable of great things and horrible things. But in the moment, nobody knows what's going to happen. Only tomorrow will tell. And that is why I believe history will actually be the judge of whether this was good or bad. That's why it's not important to think whether it's good or bad. What it is important is to learn from what we have seen. What it is important is to remember that leadership is important to be taught in our schools, in our houses, and be practiced as a way of life. Not egotistical leadership, not narcissistic leadership, but servant leadership. We're here to serve nature, to serve one another, to help one another, to empower one another to be better. So if you're here today feeling happy for the people of Venezuela, think, is this truly for their best, or will it end up like Afghanistan, like Iraq, like Syria, like Iran, like Russia? Taking the head of a dictatorship away is like cutting the head of a hydra. Two more will grow. Whether you see it today or you see it tomorrow, doesn't matter. It happens. And the only way you can stop it is by teaching the people, by changing the systems in which they have been operated for decades. They have been psychologically manipulated to accept. See, political ideologies are like religious ideologies. The life of a religious person in a country is different than the same religion in another country. And the socialism that exists in Venezuela is slightly different than the one in Cuba. It is slightly different than the one in China, and it's slightly different than the one in many European countries. The biggest difference is that the other countries have accepted free market, and Venezuela and Cuba have closed the free market, because they're afraid of losing control, they're afraid of losing power. So in a sense, I do agree. The best thing they ever did that happened to Venezuela was removing Maduro. But that is just the beginning of the work. If we're truly wanting to change a country, if we're truly there to make a difference, to show the world a better life, a better system, and a way to move forward, we will have to invest in the infrastructure. We will have to invest in education. We will have to change the system. And that takes time. You don't do that overnight. You don't do that in a secret Delta operation. You do it through time, through patience, and overall, with sincerity. You have to show the people that you truly want the best for them. You have to be a servant leader. And I really think that great changes will come from this, because I am hopeful, I'm optimist, and I kind of wish that Cuba will have the same opportunity to become free. But I know from talking to Cubans here in the United States that the change has to come from within. The change has to come from the people. It has to come from the armed forces. It has to come from the citizens that live in the island. We, including my parents that have left, the descendants of the people that have left, we have nothing to claim. We have nothing to do except for being hopeful. And as I say, being hopeful, I hope you know that the Resilient Philosopher, the Prism of Reality, is now available and audible. I do have free codes that I can share with people so they can download it for free. The book, Leadership Lessons from the Edge of Mental Health, is also available and audible. All three of my books, The Resilient Philosopher, The Prism of Reality, Leadership Lessons from the Edge of Mental Health, The Resilient Mind, Volume 1, and Mastering the Self, The Resilient Mind, Volume 2, are available for free on the website to be downloaded digitally. You can also find it in Amazon Kindle, and it will be free with a subscription to Kindle Unlimited. If you enjoy the podcast, please share it. Allow the voice to be shared throughout the world, and leave your comment, leave a feedback. Also visit visionleon.com for an expansion, an article expanding this podcast episode. And starting in February, next month, I will be starting a subscription-only channel on YouTube for members, or I should say listeners, that want to sponsor and support the work by watching a behind-the-scenes video of the podcast episode and have a expansion of the podcast where I go into more details of things that I couldn't cover in the episode because I try to keep them within 15 to 30 minutes. Sometimes it's a lot of information to put in such a small amount of time, and that is why I've come to see that it's important to do those videos. Again, it's going to be for subscribers only. It will be at $10 a month, and that money will be used to support the work that is being done. I truly believe that the podcast, the website, and the books should be available for free. And it should be an option to the reader, to the listener, whether they want to support the work or not. Whether it is through sharing the information, leaving your comments, leaving your feedback, that all will help. That all supports the work in a sense that it gives me an idea of where to go to, where to continue to work harder, etc. So I will keep reminding as the time gets closer to the release of that channel. And hopefully I will see many of you there because I want to make that area something special. It will become the Resilient Philosopher community, a place where you, the sponsor, can interact with me, can help with future episodes, can help with future articles, and to let me know where you guys want me to go next. And with your support, the expenses of running the podcast and the website can be covered, and it will also help on more research, being able to study more. And please, always show up for yourself.